Welcome back inside the Now Morning Show. Now, of course, in the midst of all this celebration of Christmas, and of course, we just gave you all the warnings from the TTPS, but one of the things that we really didn't discuss very much is the way that Christmas can impact your mental health. And we're going to do so this morning with Neil Parsanlal, the CEO of PEAPSL Consultancy Limited, Trinidad and Tobago's premier EAP provider. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Rokas. How are you
Compliments of the season.
Compliments to you too.
How are you this morning?
I'm all right. Battling a little flu, but...
All right, so I hope you win.
Well, we always win. We always win.
And give thanks for that. All right, so first of all, at PEAPSL Consultancies, you guys are the premier EAP provider. For those people who don't know what EAP is or even access it or know that they can access it, can you explain what EAP is?
EAP is an employee assistance program. So what we do at PEAPSL is that we provide that kind of what we call psychosocial support, counseling support to companies. Individuals can walk in as well, but we provide, generally, we have contracts with companies.
Right.
So any employee who's having any challenges, the company would either refer them to us or they can call on their own and just come in. And so I lead a team of psychologists, social workers, therapists who do have that kind of impact on employees. And our job really is to talk you through whatever you're going through over a period of time and get you back to work as quickly as possible in a manner in which that you can function properly.
And this is not something that you have to report what was said in those sessions to the company.
We can't.
And that part is important to make sure we say out loud so people understand that.
There's a confidentiality, clause in everything that we do, that whatever the employee says to us in counseling, we cannot. There are three occasions when we can, but that's in law. One, if there's any threat, immediate threat, to personal or someone else. If there's a subpoena from the court that says we have to, and even under those circumstances, there are some provisos there. And if the employee puts in writing that we feel. But other than that, whatever we hear in counseling stays between us and the four walls and the person in charge.
All right. So I don't want to get into the details of anybody's individual EAP journey, but I do want to get into some of the things that come up around this time when we're doing these sessions. What are some of the most common things that people come to the sessions for around Christmas time?
I think one of there are three elements that we, if we can sum it up, there's the loneliness, there's the anxiety, and there's depression that we encounter generally at this time. But those things happen, and one of the primary reasons for that is the financial stress that people find themselves in at this. It's Christmas, so people who haven't changed curtains want to change curtains, people who haven't, all kinds of things, gifts to buy. And even as simple as that gift exchange, the Secret Santa we do at workplaces, places stress on people, because it's not everybody have the money or the wherewithal to provide a gift every day. So those kinds of things impact. And of course, you get your salary early in December.
And what feels like late in January.
and forgetting that there are 85 days in January.
Only?
Yeah, so that all the money is spent in December. And so that impacts mental health. So we do provide some kind of financial counseling to employees as well.
Okay.
But around this time as well, there's that dynamic of family. And there are two elements of that. One, you have these family gatherings, and you can't buy family, right? If we could have...
And you can't really choose either.
And you can't really choose that, you see? So people, you go into these family situations, and they are stressful for lots of people. But there's an obligation, that you have to go and show your face. You have to go, and there are people who stress themselves out over that. And what we tell people is simply, monitors, decide how long you're going to stay. If you're going to show your face, go and show your face. But you don't have to. And if you're trying to avoid the arguments, if uncle is, as soon as uncle take 2 drinks, he then he tells you how much he loves you, and that upsets you, then stay away from uncle after the first drink. So the family dynamics. But there's also the question of what happens. So if you look at over the last couple of days, the reason why I wasn't here on the last occasion, for instance, my mother-in-law would have died the night before.
My condolences.
And a lot of her families mark Christmas by, this is the first Christmas without.
And
And that's a stressful time for people as well. So the Morris Julian family, for instance, they would mark this Christmas as the first Christmas without.
Yeah.
And for lots of families, it's not a joyful time. And therefore you find people who say, no, I will come to work on Christmas Day. You know, I will take the extra
and keep themselves busy.
And keep themselves busy. So for lots of people, Christmas is not that joyful time. It's not that joyous time. And we need to understand that with people. And if they're not celebrating Christmas this year, that is all right. You'll celebrate it next year.
Yeah. What should, you know, co-workers, colleagues, people who work with each other, and you realize somebody, you know, looking down at this time of the year, what sort of advice would you give to the co-workers who might be all gung-ho about Christmas, but their colleagues not so gung-ho about it?
Well, don't offer them a drink.
I mean, the drink might help, huh?
But please don't offer them a drink.
Okay.
That's not going to help them.
Okay.
Yeah, but be present.
Right.
That's all we ask people. Sometimes, you know, silence is the best, or presence, as opposed to presents. Yeah?
Okay.
Presence for your colleagues, just to let them know that we're here. We're here, and if you need, we will speak. If you want to speak, we're here. If you don't want to speak and you need somebody to sit with you in silence, then we could be fluent in silence as well.
Right.
You know, and just help people to go through the period so that, you know, and mark each day one day at a time. You know, we don't need to look to next year yet. Let's take it through the Christmas period, one day at a time, and to know that it's not a question of what can I do and what can I do and what can I do. What do you want me to do? Is there anything I can help you with?
But most people, when you ask that kind of question, they tend to say nothing. Like
people see through people see through what is fake and what is real.
Right.
Yeah. So if you're telling me how you're going, and by the time you finish the sentence, you're down the corridor,
right,
then I know that you're not interested in me.
Of course.
Yeah. So, few friends, keep close, and just help them to work through this period, because it is a difficult period. So the family dynamic, you know, is one thing.
And on the topic of the family dynamic, you mentioned, you know, that some people don't really want to go, they don't want to be a part of it. And I mean, I can admit that I see it more often with a particular age group, right? So oftentimes when you're finding yourself in that late teens, early 20s, you tend to want to be around the family less and with your friends more, for example. What sort of advice would you give to the parents, the older ones in the household, who might be complaining, oh gosh, you ain't coming home, you ain't want to come, you want to come and see the family, but you know, for example, like you mentioned, the ones who not comfortable with the family at that point in time, they have whatever issues with this one, hey, upon wait, and that's the good evening greeting, you know, and these sort of things that happen that you're not 100% comfortable with. What sort of advice would you give to the matriarchs and the patriarchs of the household who might be expecting everybody to come back but not facilitating that welcoming space entirely?
And to understand that they were there once.
Right.
And sometimes it's difficult for us as parents, you know, or the matriarchs, the patriarchs, to remember that we were there once when we didn't want to be around, you know, certain members of a family, or we chose the time and the space when we wanted to. And if your son, your daughter, your niece or your nephew is having difficulty being around the entire family at that point, create an opportunity for them to come up by themselves. Let them come and see granny, let them come and see, you know, grandpa, let them come back home, let them see uncle. Create that opportunity for them rather than the grand family gathering, because you know that they will be uncomfortable. Because it is in those family circumstances, everybody wants to know when you're getting married,
when you get your next child,
when you get your next
first child,
what happened, you know, and then it's we start to compare who's done what over the year, and you know, and those kinds of issues. So you try to avoid that. Which brings me to the next point about the end of the year being that point of reflection.
Right.
And sometimes people use the end of the year as that point, you know, to look back, and you say, but I haven't done anything for the year.
I mean, you made it to the end of the year. That's a good place to start.
And so we ask people, start counting your blessings.
Yeah.
But people might have set goals for the year.
Right.
And you look back at Christmas time and you say, but I ain't do nothing.
Yeah.
You know, and that is also a point of inflection for people, and it could be a point that leads to
depression.
You know, depression. You know, so we try to help people to work through those things. Yes, but look at how much you've achieved. Still, you know, you made it, as you said, you've made it to the end of the year. That in itself is a blessing. You know.
How do you suggest that we mark some of the achievements that we would have made? Because to some people it might be like, well, I ain't do nothing. and adjust. And not only, and you know, they will feel like they made the big significant goals that they would have written down. Everybody have the New Year's resolution, and you write it down and you say, all right, vision board 2024. And then you go back and you look at the board and you say, but none of these things completed, but you may have worked on all of them throughout the year. How do you mark those achievements that you can still look back and say, well, yeah?
So we talk to people about setting goals, and we know the whole SMART goal, you know, the matrix, where it's measurable. So you might not have achieved, you might not have lost the 30 pounds you wanted to lose by Christmas, but you'd have lost 10.
Right.
So celebrate that.
Okay.
You know, you might not have saved the million that you wanted to save, but you might have saved, you know,
1,000. Let me go with 1,000.
1,000.
Right.
Mark that.
Okay.
And it's important for us, you know, when I talk with people at times, to help them to remember that you opened your eyes this morning and that was your first blessing. When you looked up, you did not see the sky. It meant you have a roof over your head. That in itself is a blessing. When you swung your feet off your bed, you didn't put it in water. That is a blessing. You were able to go to the toilet and do whatever you had to do in the toilet. That too is a blessing. And all of that you did before you had breakfast.
Right.
Yeah. So there's so many blessings that we take for granted, that if we just take the time to reflect on those, on count what we have rather than what we do not have, I think we'd be in a much better space in terms of dealing with our mental health.
Fantastic. I think that is definitely important for us to appreciate those little things, and I think people often take it for granted. You know, because you wake up and you might realize, oh gosh, I still have so much things to do, and you wake up and you go on and you don't realize those little things that, you know, you wake up, for starters.
Yeah.
Give thanks for that.
Give thanks.
You get up to go on about your business.
Yes.
You have business to be about in the first place. But there's also this thing that happens sometimes to people. You may get overwhelmed by all of the things that are happening around you, so much so that you can't catch yourself, or you feel like you can't catch yourself. Be it from events to, like you mentioned, the shopping, the curtains, the thing, and you feel like all of these social expectations are overwhelming you. How do you suggest that people deal with that?
And I would still tell people, take it one step at a time.
Right.
So the curtains, you didn't get to put up the curtains Christmas Eve because everything else is rushing.
Right.
Jesus wouldn't be upset.
He mightn't come.
Jesus would not be upset if you didn't put up the curtains in time.
Okay.
You know, they take the steps, and if you have 5 parties to go to, choose one.
Right.
You don't need to attend all the Christmas events. You don't need to visit every single family on Christmas Day, Boxing Day, and pack everything into one. You don't. Pace yourself. It's just like the carnival fetes.
Right.
Pace yourself, and you'll get through the majority of them, and you will realize the benefit in pacing yourself. Because being overwhelmed, you allow that to happen to you. Yeah? Don't allow other people to dictate what your schedule is going to be. Yeah. You determine your schedule and you follow the schedule that you want to follow, not the schedule that someone else wants you to follow.
I want to say that that feels easier said than done, because oftentimes when you start feeling that feeling of being overwhelmed, it's not because of anybody else putting pressure on you, but you put that pressure on yourself, and sometimes unknowingly, unwillingly.
Because sometimes we feel that we are disappointing people if we don't if we don't attend the event, if we don't go by Uncle this year.
You'll be upset.
They'll be upset. Call them and tell them you're not coming. You know, for some reason, you know, I'm not able to come, but I will see you in the new year. You know, but don't do it to yourself so that at the end of it, you're more frazzled than anybody else, and your mental health, you know, has taken a huge hit for the Christmas.
And I mean, around Christmas time too, there's all the traffic on the road, and I see people losing themselves on the road. They get road rage. There was a man coming on the road 5 o'clock this morning, blowing us on hard, trying to pass people. And I'm like, where can you possibly, nowhere open me at, like where you're rushing to go? And, you know, how do you suggest people deal with that road rage, that anger that builds up in you when you're sitting in traffic, going to try and buy something for somebody?
Anger is always a choice. You choose to get angry. And I can choose either to get angry and act on that anger, or I can choose to channel what the emotions, the intensity of my emotions, I could channel that into something else. And that's what I will always advise people. Look for the other things. So instead of cussing the man, with road rage, because as the two get together, you're bouncing heads. Nothing good is going to come out of that. You're going to end up just as enraged as the other person is. You see how you can de-escalate the situation. It happens in families as well. Long time we used to paint the step red, and the floor had a polish, and all of that,
and varnish and everything,
and varnish and all of that, and we stress each other out as members of the family. Face ourselves, and decide what is your priority at this stage. If I get myself angry now, if I choose to get angry now, what is going to happen to the next person I meet? Am I going to take my anger out on them? They don't deserve that. If I get angry here, am I taking it back home to my family? They don't deserve that.
How do we dissipate the anger?
How do you de-escalate your own anger from the get-go? You can decide what you're going to do with this.
Nice. Do me a favor before we wrap up this morning and just look into this camera and wish Trinidad and Tobago whatever greeting you would like to wish them for the end of the year and for the Christmas season.
I'd just like to wish Trinidad and Tobago a Merry Christmas, a happy, a holy Christmas, a peaceful Christmas. And if you do feel overwhelmed, there are resources that are available that you can call. There's an 800 COPE that the ministry has, the Ministry of Social Development. There's a hotline that they have. PEAPSL has its own hotline. It's 314-HELP. You can, in fact, utilize those numbers and access the help that is necessary, that you feel you need at this point in time. On behalf of PEAPSL, on behalf of my own family, I wish you a Merry Christmas and a bright and prosperous New Year.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Neil Parsanlal, the CEO of PEAPSL Consultancy Limited, Trinidad and Tobago's premier EAP company. Thank you so much for joining us. All the best to you and your family for this season and 2025.
Same to you, Rockers.
Thank you very much.
All the best to you and your family, and to the TTT family as well.
And to the TTT family as well. We take a quick break and come back with more right here in the Now Morning Show. Stick around. Naturally,